Welcome to More Business, More Life TV. And this show, what we're focused as we go live every week, every Tuesday, is on our prosperity. What can we do right now in 2020? And how can we make an impact? And I want to share our stories and our guest stories. And I just wanted, before I introduce our guests, I just want to share with you that we are also doing a Wow Client webcast later this week. And if you're watching this on replay, we're going to keep doing these. But these are ways that we're helping folks right now in this economy. How do you actually grow business, have wow sales, while being authentic and while actually helping others? And that's what this is all about. And today's no different. Today, my guest is Wendy Yates, and she has done a lot of things. We have a lot of areas to talk. She has multiple businesses, and she's been able to grow during this time. And I guess, Wendy, right away, the thing that comes to me and I love to ask is, when you noticed that what was happening in 2020 wasn't a short thing, it wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon. What became most important for you and your businesses?
The thing that became most important, well, I realized right away, I panicked like everyone else, sort of, but my panic is spring into motion and go as fast as possible. So it was like, how else can we diversify? What other services we can add, and how quickly can we do it, and which ones are going to be the most viable in the event that we can't go back to the way we were typically accustomed to doing things. So it was a sprint for me immediately, pretty much within the week. I had actually just gotten back from traveling to grow my business in Hawaii, and I had gotten on the plane, and it was before, like the weekend before the shutdown. I also had a wellness day planned that Saturday, and I think everything where I live shut down that Sunday. And I was kind of like just not in the know. Like I had heard about a little bit, but it happened so quickly that I felt immediately that it could probably go on for a long period of time.
Well, so you kind of knew, and we can pick that apart a little bit. And thanks for sharing on that. And I guess I'm curious, like, what would you say has been your biggest success or turning point so far for this year?
I think the biggest success is that everyone else, we were sort of a virtual company already. We work with we work with developers and builders and homeowners that are buying usually a second or a luxury home. So they're not typically living where we work. So we already had some virtual platforms in place, but I think the biggest success so far has been everyone else realizing that things can be done virtually, and it's helped us move forward faster our global expansion. So we had always planned to sort of start diverting more globally. We had focused on Mexico for development work, but we are officially in the Dominican Republic, and now we are actually launching into Italy. And so I think the recognition that it was okay to be more as a global community than what I think there's a lot of us as entrepreneurs that see ourselves as global citizens, but there's a lot of consumers on the other end, or people coming into the entrepreneur world that don't really understand that they have to be so localized. And while we love our local communities and our local clients, our goal was always to become a bigger, more global platform so that we could have a bigger, larger impact in the global initiatives that are personally important to me. So I think it definitely made that move a lot quicker because it was more about the relationships that had a right fit rather than, oh, you're within a certain proximity to me. So I think it definitely opened up a whole new world for people to take opportunity to grow their business beyond just, how far they can throw.
That's amazing. Yeah, and because you were already working semi-virtually and in some cases full on virtually before this all started to happen, you were able to move even quicker. And so now you've actually expanded. And so I'm curious, like now that you've had that and you're able to do more virtually and it kind of pushed you a little faster, what does having that do for you?
Um, for me, it brings me a lot more joy. It helps me to really start adding in other areas of revenue for I had been focusing on adding, the seven streams of revenue prior to what happened in 2020, but it just made me move faster, and being able to grow faster, more globally allowed me to also give more globally. It allowed me to, again, more people got on Zoom. Zoom and Google Chats and all that stuff was very common, but having the rest of the world sort of be sort of a little bit forced into it, allowed us more opportunity to connect with more people and a lot more things that maybe you couldn't physically go to, trade events, coaching events, mastermind groups, they became online. And one of the things that I did is I did up my coaching. And I think that definitely was a game changer for me because it brought me together with like minded people that previously I would have had to go away. Not that I still don't want to go away to retreat, but
Yeah.
that would have had to do that in order to connect with. And it's just bringing, sort of everything a little bit more centralized and more people are accepting that as a normal way to, make new friends, if you will.
Yeah, so beautifully said. It definitely has brought more people together. And we've even, as we brought our events, one thing I did early in this is right away in March, we decided that we were not going to stop any of our events. We were just going to switch them to virtual, which took some work, but it's been so rewarding because we were able to help people and then more people enrolled. And we had several events where we had folks from Australia and both sides of the coast, some people in Puerto Rico. And so when we were having our meal break here in California for lunch, then it was breakfast in Australia and it was dinner in Puerto Rico. And I've had people from all over the world come to our events, but it's truly global now, like in the same event. So and then we did breakout rooms, and there was some breakout rooms where you had someone from Puerto Rico and someone from Portland and then someone from Australia in the same group. And so they're like working in these global rooms. So it was so awesome to see and so awesome to see your growth. Congratulations on like taking action and knowing that change was basically inevitable at this point in this year and then working with your strengths and really allowing for expansion. I'm curious now to take a moment and step back and we will come. I want to come to some how to's and like slow things down a little bit. So maybe we can help others take some of those steps and initiatives you did. But before we do that, I just want to also take a step back and say, what was it like before this? Because here you are having this movement, before you were taking this level of action, I don't know if it's like in 2019 or where that is, but what was it like before having all of this global expansion that you're having now?
Really it was just it was a typical. So it was the goals and the desires and the vision and the mission was the same. It's just it was for a future plan and it was spread out over a much longer time period. And it was a for me actually, I remember at the beginning of 2020, I was like, things just aren't happening fast enough. And you know, and
Yeah.
things are happening fast enough. I was actually personally having a little bit of just personal turmoil with what direction I was going to take my company. Was it going to continue? I had looked. I had always planned to move into. I work for a lot of developers now, but I planned to work more as a developer and bring in my own design team. And so I was like, this is just it's taking so long. And I think when everything sort of got disrupted and people were forced to stay inside, like a lot of people just left me alone. And I was like, oh, that's weird. You know what I mean? Like they had to take a space and evaluate, were they going to move forward with their projects? What were they going to do? And, I had launched Wealth at Human that year before. And that was just kind of like, it was like a struggle. That startup just was a struggle already. And so I was actually just kind of like, okay, should I focus on fewer, smaller retreats, And so then it was completely different. I feel like I was in this definitely slower pace. And then I was like, okay, well, now's the time to just do all the things, which is typically how I think anyways, but it forced me to be because I felt like I did have more time because other people were sort of evaluating what they were going to do and other companies that I worked with. And it was harder to get a hold of people because there were layoffs in the supply chain for us and things like that. And so I think it was I was actually maybe a little bit of the opposite of what some people felt prior to March. I was a little bit like I couldn't get focused, and for me, and I'm not saying this has been a great thing or this year's been like full of good things, but I do think there's something to be said for thriving in chaos and coming out on the other side and really taking the time to look within yourself to be like, okay, what do I want to be on the other side or when, as things evolve and change. And I really did do that. I took a look at my financial structure. I just evaluated everything and why it was being so slow before. And then felt like I had, there again, just more resources, more coaching was available, easier to get coaching. People that I thought I would have to coach with in person, I could coach with, like this, or, in conversation. And it just became a really fast forward to what I actually needed. I know that's not what
It's
everyone needed, but I needed it.
Yeah, well, and I think that it's something I'm so glad that you brought this up because it did give time. I definitely felt the same things. It was like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And I felt the same thing. Things that we were planning for a year from now, 2 years from now, they all happened in the last 6 months. So it did
Amazing.
collapse time frames. And you're exactly right. Where things let up, it opened up time. And even just traveling, I was noticing like, how do I have so much extra time? But you know how many more flights I would have gotten on in 2020? And then even when I was traveling with my family, it's still downtime, going to the airports, all these things. So um, time opened up. And even though I felt like I was working more, I still was having time with my kids. And I was like, how is this possible? And then had to realize to myself, it's time movement. It just like other
Yeah.
chunks of things would have been taken up. And that's what I'm hearing from you. And this is, coming to a positive. I think, I'm with you like any time. And even when in the Chinese language, crisis is two characters, and it really looks at the situation of what's happening, but it also looks at the opportunity. That's the second character
Mhm.
in it, and that is what you did. And not only that, it gave you, if afforded you the time to really think. And so this is just something where I think it's a great reframe for everyone else. Like, where are you getting time? Where are you allowing yourself to slow down? And previous to now, I would purposely do that, make sure that I go to a retreat here or there, like you're talking about. And I'd have to force myself. And sometimes I would have to drag myself away because I'm passionate about my work as well. And so it's easy to get into that work. And then when we have like a forced one, it's like, okay, everyone's going to stay home, like forced retreat, in a way. We didn't think of it that
Yeah.
way. Right. But you took action with that. And I'm curious. So just so we have a little bit of context, I know we've mentioned a little bit of your development, and you have your design company. Can you just share a little bit of the context of your business so people know? And what's most important, what I like to highlight is your core values, because I know we have some alignment there. So if you could just share briefly your business and then the values behind it, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, my intention is to build companies rooted in culture and value and set an example to show that you can do good, be well, and have a platform of wealth and a voice for others all at the same time. You don't have to choose, that your life and your work are equally important. And if you're doing something that you love and you're following a purpose and you're doing it in a joyful way, that you can design the life that you want. And so that's my core values of our company culture. In fact, the reason we went virtual um, before 2020 was to allow our team members to live the lifestyle that I lived. So they could live and thrive where they want, and the talent wouldn't be based on where you had to be. And so I think when you're able to really focus in on your purpose, start at the end, what do you want your life to have meant, and then work your way backwards, it's really or forward, it's really easy to say, this
Yeah.
is what I want to exist and be. And if you start here and say, this is what do you want somebody to say about you? If you have kids, like I think that's the most empowering thing. What do you want your kids to read in your eulogy, right? And so if you start there, that becomes so much more important than everything. And to get there, I use skills that I had. Design came naturally to me. I did not graduate from, Parsons School of Design or anything in that way. I dropped out of college, but I had to hustle. I had to move into action because I was broke, and working for someone else just did not fit my values. And so I had to just move forward with the skill set that I felt came naturally to me. I had to bootstrap my business. And so I chose design because I had, at an early age, sort of felt that creativity as sort of a natural thing
Yeah.
to me. I really wanted to do fashion design, but you definitely had to, um, know how to sew, which I actually did not have that skill. I still don't. And so I just moved forward with it. But as I got into it, I was working with, amazing developers and amazing people. And I just sort of evolved. Like it evolved from me to be like, okay, and I also want to do this. And I also want to do this. Oh, but I also want to go volunteer and, you know what I mean, in these countries and do great things or even volunteer locally. And, but I can't do that until I make this amount of money. And so for me, became really, really staying focused on my purpose and realizing that then anything else, any emotion that could be tied that could change that, really became irrelevant because it all matters. Like, what did you want your life to mean? And for me, I didn't want my life to mean exchanging dollars for time. And so I don't want to employ people that feel that way either. I want to offer them the same opportunity, and I want to show that. We can reinvent what we think is possible, and you can be more than one thing, and you can do it at the same time. And it just takes knowing your purpose and finding your joy and knowing what that purpose is. I think those two things aligned really just set you up to get the life you design. I mean, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you design. So I think that is really the core value that we try to drive everything within our company into the lifestyle that we create for other people, experiences, and communities alike.
So beautiful, Wendy. And that's the reason, like right away when we met, I was like, oh, you have to come on the show because that's what more business and more life is all about,
Yeah.
and it's by design. I often say design your life and then build your business or career around that. It's so often the
Yeah.
opposite, right? We often find so many people are out there going to make that certain dollar amount or once I reach this position in my career or this amount of money, then I'll have my life. And it's this magic wand thinking that like poof, now you'll have the life. And in fact, the further you go up the corporate ladder, the more stress and the more work. I work with a lot of CEOs and they're like, holy crap, I thought I would get here and then it would be like the end of the finish line, but then they're just starting the race after they already ran a marathon. It's like getting to the end of the marathon and think you just finished the race and they're like, keep running, keep going. You can't stop now. Keep going. It's like, it's that treadmill that you can't get off of. And that's also by design. So it's so beautiful what you're saying about, and I believe it too. Start with the end. Where are we going? And, in the last couple of years with where I want to go with my business, it actually freaked us out because we're like, here's where we want to go. Here's the impact we want to make. And then it's like, whoa, the company's way bigger than we thought it was going to be. So it was definitely not based on money. It was based on what impact we want to make on the world. And then it
Mhm.
was like, okay, now let's roll up our sleeves. Let's go. So I believe in, and it's what I speak about and what I train about. And so we're so aligned there. And it seems like, with you following your gut, it's, it seems like you had always done it that way, like just listening to yourself or I guess what I'm looking for now, and thank you so much for taking the time to share all this with our audience. I'm curious, before making this move, and I don't know if this was at the beginning of 2020, like when everything started happening, like what were the steps you had to take if we were to like slow down? Because I like to do that. If we can like, kind of go in slow mo, and you and I like to talk fast. So, but not in our speed of talk, but just slowing ourselves down enough so that we can give a teaching moment. Like what would be, the turning point moment? And I don't know if that was prior to 2020 for you or if like in that beginning moment, like when like you said, I guess let's go there. You said there was a freak out moment. So what turned that freak out moment? If we slow down on that moment, like what was the turning point from freak out to momentum that you created?
Well, I do talk fast and I also operate. I always say speed is my starting point. I didn't create that sentence. Sally Grimes, actually, a really a wonderful CEO of another company, said that. But I always think it. I'm like, yes, that's so true. You're not, it's just not fast enough. But that's just me and me personally. But as far as the slowdown goes, it was more of, I think the panic was super quick for me. I was like, okay, like all the things that we want to do, let's just get started doing them, right? Because one of the things too with my staff, we did have projects get put on hold, pretty large projects, because they were in the hospitality and commercial space, and those projects just did not move forward. Some organizations just did not feel comfortable paying subcontractors when they were laying off their staff, when their restaurants couldn't be open. And
Right.
that's part of our business as well. And so it was like, okay, I really wanted to, I think what it was is my team. I'm like, I really don't want to have to, you know, disappoint my team or let them down, not out of guilt, but just out of all these grand plans that we had for 2020, which were a little different. They were growth in different ways. But I really think that I thought about them, to be honest. And I was like, and my purpose. I was like, I'm here to change lives. I'm here to change lives, like, and impact as many people as possible. And yes, I do design through design that everything exists. And so I had to move that forward and beyond, sort of reinvent. That was always my goal, to reinvent the thinking. And so I think it was just a really quick, like, okay, and I personally just operate. So I would say for people that maybe don't have that initial instinct to just get started and get into motion, I would say to really spend time thinking about what it is. The first step, really, I think, and being able to take a step back, if you're not one of those people that just can jump into action and jump into the fire and has to have everything planned out, which is a lot of people, is to really decide what it is you want and what price you're willing to pay. And then it just becomes irrelevant. I think Zig Ziglar said that. What price do you want to pay, or what do you want? What price are you willing to pay, and then get to work? Not most people don't have that mentality, or a split amount. I actually don't know the percentage. Maybe there's a lot of people that have that mentality, but that's what I think. So I think
Yeah.
it's really taking a step back and saying all the things you want to do. If you got hit by a bus tomorrow or you got COVID tomorrow, it really becomes irrelevant anything else. So just stay focused on what it is you want. But if you don't know what it is you want, take a step back and um, really outline it, and then think about who's around you, who's surrounding you, and who's going to take that journey with you. And, honestly, for me, it was, I wanted to keep things moving in motion. So that those changes and those ads, I'm like, okay, we got to start offering e-design. Not something we did before, wasn't really on our goals, but it was something people were on the internet, and so it was like, and this person can contribute this and this person can contribute that. So, sort of evolving the roles within the company for a short period of time to keep people employed was really important to me. And I think that
That's
made a little switch in my brain.
absolutely, I can hear that. And you know what's going on in my mind, just to take what you're saying and slow it down one more level. It is what you just said is like, I think what, and I was very similar to you. I think you and I had our why, like our core values were already set coming into 2020. And that's what I feel like. The way that I'm running my business and the way that you're running your businesses are completely different than 2020. Yeah, or 2019. Like they've changed so much. However, what they're riding on, like the core values, they're still the same. In fact, that drove the change, and that's the same thing
Yes.
that I've been doing. So I think when you take that pause, so you have the freak out, right? It's
Mhm.
like like my mentors, Carl Buchheit, who taught me a lot. He said it's like OMG, WTF, and then it's what would I like, right? And that's like the
Yeah,
steps to go.
perfect.
So you have the
Yeah.
OMG, like right, and then you have this WTF moment, and then it's like, okay, what would I like? And then if you know the course you're on, you know your why, like you just illustrated, then it's easy to say, well, that's where we were going, and that whole bridge just blew up. So I guess there's a road over there, but we're not going to stop going the way we're going to go. It's like there's many ways to get where we want to go, and as long as we know where we want to go. So for you and I, like our roads have changed, but our destination is still the same. And so and
Yes.
then what I also heard you say was that if you don't know your destination and you have been in the mire of it, you've just been maybe working a job, or maybe you even built a company and then you have a lackluster, you forgot why you started the company or whatever, and now you're in this lull, or contracts have gone away, job, maybe you were laid off. Maybe this is a blessing, and right now you might not think of it, but that's why another one of my taglines is choose gratitude, create freedom. If we find the gratitude in the moment. And so coming to the 2 points that I'm trying to illustrate right here based off what Wendy just said, and then what I also believe in is, one, if this pause is a time to find your why, or two, it's redefining your why. It's just like taking the why and redirecting where you're going. And I think that's what you did, right? So you that's
Yeah.
and does that
And I
make
I
sense?
think
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's important to say too that it's not like I had it all figured out that I was like, okay, now I know what I'm doing or whatever. I definitely, as I was like, oh, is this like, should we be wasting time on this? And, let's just go, like, let's just take a pause back and, wait or whatever. I mean, there was definitely those thoughts that crossed my head. I mean, they were for like split seconds, because, all of us have doubt and all of us have a little bit of that imposter syndrome of like, can we actually pull this off and accomplish this, especially when you start to dream and reach bigger than you had before. I thought what I wanted to accomplish was already huge. And then as I started going through and realizing, oh, this, you know, you stay focused on your purpose. And yes, you can have negative thoughts and negative emotions and, limiting beliefs and all of that. The key is to surround yourself with other people that will champion you, and align yourself with people doing things better than you, doing things that you want to do and or that have the same mission and vision that you do. And then it all is a game changer. So it doesn't, again, still mean that you still aren't going to have those doubts and you're going to have the perfect path lined out. And I just want to share that because I think a lot of people say to me, "Oh, you must have it all figured out, and I can't do what you do, and I can't leave this because I'm too afraid." I'm like, what's your purpose? Is your purpose bigger than your fear? Because I'm here. I'm here to help you. And
Yeah.
I'm not a coach by any means, but I always want to encourage everyone that I come across to realize that we're all human beings and you can have these steps and these plans, but it doesn't mean they're going to go perfect. Just like you said, the road might change. You might have to take a hot air balloon over there, but
Right.
and your direction might change. The wind might come and say, "Nope, you go here instead." And again, if your purpose is still your purpose, and it sounds so cheesy to say that because I say it a lot, but my new saying is it's not cheesy, it works. So like
Right.
in my, so
Yeah.
because people say, "Oh, that's so cheesy." I'm like, well, yeah, to you, but
Yeah.
if it works, does it matter?
Well, another one of my mentors, Jeffrey Slater, he used to always say, and I use this line now too. I basically, I'd rather be cheesy and have what I want than to be cool and not have what I want.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's just it. Like, so that goes back to the thinking of, okay, I'm not going to have what I want because I'm worried about what you're thinking about me.
Mhm.
That's
Why?
totally because if you're,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like follow. Believe me, I've done that. I mean, I did that. I mean, when I
We
was
all
growing up, you're
have.
worried about what other people think. You have all this armor on, and even personal growth. And you're bringing that up a lot, like surrounding yourself with the right people. And I wish I would have done that earlier when I spoke at some youth and high schools, and I because I started as an entrepreneur at 19, and basically I wish I had more direction. And one teacher at the end of speaking at a high school, he said, "Steve, can I ask one more question?" I'm like, "What is it?" He said, "What are 2 words you would tell your high school self?" And I said, "Get mentors." And it came out of my mouth so fast. I was like, "Oh my gosh, did I just say that?" It was like, "Get mentors." And I was like,
Yeah.
"But that's it. Get mentors."
Yeah.
I wish all of my 20s I lost over $4 million. So, and I felt like a loser at 31. I was like, I'm a loser. I'm not a good business guy. Like, this is horrible. And then when I finally met my mentor, he's like, how many people in their 20s have the ability to lose 4 million? Like, you have to have
Yeah.
4 million to lose it. So, like, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. And I was still taking in, but it wasn't until I was 31 that I finally started getting coaches. And now I'm a coach, speaker, author. I bring a lot of thoughts and guide people, and I still have coaching. I invest heavily in myself and in my family because it's so much faster. It just as a reference, in my 20s, I calculated all. I lost over $4 million that we earned, that we lost by all kinds of things, messed up businesses, bad real estate investment. Like, I did it all, right? And then in my 30s, I invested over $500,000 in coaching, mentors, and now I'm in my 40s, and I would go back to my 30-year-old self and say, pay double, because it's
Yeah.
priceless. Like, I can't even put a price tag on the life that I have now. Um, and so yeah, so I
I
love
honestly
all these
couldn't agree
points.
more. Yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't agree more, not to interrupt you, but I couldn't agree
no, it's
more, and I
okay.
just because I just want to second that. I actually did a little bit of coaching prior, but I mean, I'm so happy that you started coaching in your 30s. I am in my 40s, and I did like sort of straggle into my 40s and then start coaching. But in 2020, I definitely sought after higher, more skilled, mentors that I was scared to reach out to that I thought, oh, they're too big for me, whatever, but mentors want to help people like that,
Yeah.
and so, and I agree, like I spend more money on coaching now than on anything in my life. Anything. I can't even think of anything that costs more.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of money, like, and I give a lot of money away. I can't think of anything that costs more. And I just keep growing it. Like it's kind of like the next level. And I think it's amazing that you said that, because I think it's something that I really wish specifically in my 20s that would have been more prevalent and more accessible. And I think now, we have an opportunity and people have an opportunity to take advantage of so many amazing coaching and mentors, even more than before. You don't have to go off to an island, secluded island somewhere to be, what I mean, to go find these mentors. You can easily access them. And they're, people like us want to help other people. That's one of our whole, missions. It's like
Yeah.
if I have an idea and you have an idea and we share our ideas and we help each other, then we have two ideas. And if we multiply that over and over and over again, it's not about a competition of who's better, who's more successful. It's just all about like, let's share and grow together and become that true global society where we actually can have real impact and not just talk about having it. So I think coaching is key
Absolutely.
to that.
It's together. Together is one of our
Mhm.
core values that we, in the African proverb, it says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. And if you want to go
Yeah.
far, go together. And this is together. We're all, even you and I, like we have a lot of similarities, but we come with different angles and different experiences. And so we're both bringing different things to the table. And so, and we could keep going. And I am going to have you on my podcast as well, so we can spend more time discussing things. And that's more like a fireside chat. So we'll chat about that. But I just, since we're coming to the end of our show, I just want to reiterate, when things change or slow down, whether it's in 2020 or in the future, what Wendy's talking about and what we're expressing together here is that, take that moment to say, okay, do I know my why? Like even reflect on it. Is it exactly where I want to go? Is my heart beating for this? And if it is, then be willing to change the direction. I often say, if it's getting hard the way you're going, but you still believe in what you want to do, keep going, but let the road change. There's a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
Or like Wendy said, you can take a hot air balloon. You might not need any roads. The best path might be in the sky, wherever it is, but find that way and don't give up on your dream. Just be willing to give up on the path if the path gets hard. So I took that away from our conversation. And then the other part is, if you struggle with any parts of this, like knowing your why or how to get where you want to go, then it comes back to getting mentors. That would be like the step by step. It's like, if you know your why, then take a different direction. If you don't know your why, find your why. If you have trouble finding your why or the direction, get a mentor. I think if we were
Yeah.
to put everything into like 20
I
seconds,
think
would
you
you
just
add anything?
simplified it into a poster.
That's
Perfect.
it. That's it. That's how my mind always wants to make it simple. But before we go, Wendy, would you add anything to that? Or do you think that's does that put a little cup of tea on what we talked about?
I mean, I think that sums it up perfectly. And I couldn't agree more with everything you just closed out with.
Beautiful. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Wendy, and we're definitely going to have Wendy on our podcast so we can spend a good hour talking about, because there's so many things that have happened in your life that I think it would be great to share with our audience. So I'm very grateful to have you on the show, and grateful that we're going to have you on another show soon. And then just a reminder to everyone out there, we are doing our Wow Client webcast coming up. We've been doing a handful of these and it's absolutely free. And it's basically a training Q&A with me live, so that you can interact with me and figure out what you can do right now and what we've been doing to move business. Like Wendy and I were talking about, how do we reposition things so that we can have the success that we want right now in 2020. So I look forward to serving you more. Thanks so much for showing up. We're here every Tuesday at 2:15 Pacific time. Until next time, remember, choose gratitude and create.